Hey everybody, welcome back to another TGB Insider. It's been a while. I apologize. I'm also feeling a bit under the weather today, so I apologize for that too. Basically, I've just been trying to get content out as quickly as possible. Technically speaking, I only managed to get one video out in July, which was the Klonoa video. But I managed to get 4 out in August, which I'm pretty happy with. I mean, a lot of that has to do with the fact that I was making Ninja Gaiden in July. But, yeah, I just kind of wanted to blitz content that month, and I think it turned out pretty well. I think it turned out pretty good. The last Insider we did was also like an hour-and-a-half long podcast with Hyperbit Hero, which took a long time to make, actually. So I got a bit burnt out on these, but we're going to get back to it now. We're going to try and make sure I release all of the Insiders that I promised. I don't think it's worth putting the month in the title anymore, because clearly we're not quite on track with that. But I figured as long as I release 12 of these in the year of 2018, then I will fulfill my commitment to you guys. So we're going to try and get that done. One of the main problems, though, is that I don't actually get that much time to play games aside from the ones that are on the YouTube channel. But I have been messing around with a few games here and there, so I'm going to talk to you about them and give you some quick thoughts on how I feel about them. Alrighty then, let's do it. So first we're going to start out with Ranko Tsugime's Longest Day, which was an entry into the Short Piece collection, which was a series of 4 anime shorts plus a game, and the game was made by Grasshopper Studio, with involvement and creative input from Goichi Suda, Suda51. It starts out as like pretty standard, like high school girl with superpowers, sort of anime storytelling. But then it seems to deconstruct that a little bit by the end and goes off the rails. Not entirely sure what they were going for, but it's kind of interesting. Turns into like quite a mindfuck by the end, and I think I'm gonna have to go through it again to really understand what they were going for there. Obviously, it's so short, and you get such little time to be with the characters before things get crazy, that it's not really a world you're invested in, or invested in seeing changing, so it's not very affecting when the game decides to go crazy. I haven't even described what the game is about yet. In this game, it's sort of like it's like a 2D side-scroller. It's a bit like an Endless Runner, but with levels. On a 2D plane, you run, and then you're trying to escape a thing that's chasing you, and you have to hit enemies to build up power for your gun so you can shoot the thing that's chasing you. It's pretty alright, pretty fun. The screen can get a bit cluttered sometimes, and it's a bit hard to see what's going on. But generally speaking, I had a fun enough time playing through it. The final boss fight's a bit annoying. I'm not being very constructive, I apologize. My mind's kind of a bit messed up right now with the illness I'm afflicted with. But yeah, it's very harmless as like a little extra game to play alongside a series of anime shorts, which I actually haven't watched yet, but I suppose I should at some point. A lot of people are telling me to play Silver Case, the 25th Ward, which was a pseudo-sequel released in the mid-2000s, I believe, for phones in Japan, sequel to the Silver Case. And I was kind of surprised when they announced they were going to localize it and translate it and bring it out here. But apparently they did, but according to people, Suda actually wrote some new chapters for the game, and people are saying this is like some Kino Suda, like Suda's back, baby. Like, you gotta check this out. So, intrigued by that. Definitely going to give it a go at some point. Think I'll probably replay Silver Case again though, because it's been a while, and I've probably forgotten a lot of the plot details that will probably be more satisfying to have on hand when 25th Ward updates me on what's going on in that world, or maybe it won't. Maybe it will be completely unrelated. We'll see. Speaking of Grasshopper games, speaking of Suda games, Travis Strikes Again is coming out in a few months. I mean, I say a few months. I think the release date's in January now. Bit of a weird time to release it. You know, Travis Strikes Again, pretty niche Japanese game. And I think it kind of makes sense to release it at the end of the year when all the big Western games are coming out. and the sort of niche audience who would play Travis Strikes Again is freed up to play Travis Strikes Again, as opposed to in January when we've got Ace Combat and Resident Evil 2 Remake and Kingdom Hearts 3 coming out. For that type of audience, I worry that's going to be a bit of a cluttered climate for Travis Strikes Again to eke out any sort of attention, but we'll see. In the lead up to that, I figured it's about time, I'm pretty late to the party on this one, that I start playing Fury, which was a top-down sort of action game about killing loads of crazy bosses in a very bloomy, techno-looking world, which Travis Strikes Again seems to have taken a lot of inspiration from. I actually don't know who developed it. I'm going to look that up. The Game Bakers just seem to have done some phone games. It's made by a pretty indie studio, and you can kind of tell the interface, the menus, the HUD, the heads-up display. There's a little bit of an amateur quality to them. No big deal, but from what I played of Travis Strikes Again, you can tell that like a seasoned developer is kind of behind it, and they've put a lot of effort into how things look and feel in terms of just the aesthetics of the menus and the way things look. I think in Fury, some of the colors aren't that nice to look at. Some of the way some of the levels look aren't that pleasing to the eye. But aside from those kind of details, it seems like a heck of a good time, a heck of an interesting game, and for a boss rush, it seems like there's some great ideas here. From what I played as Travis Strikes Again at a convention, it seems pretty. Well, I only played like the first level, obviously, but it seems to, not be doing anything crazy. You run for a level, you slash a bunch of enemies who die super easy, then you get to a boss fight, and the boss is like, oh, hit me a bit, and then I'm going to turn invincible, and then you've got to destroy my 4 generators, and then I'll become damageable again. Damageable. But in Fury, there's this great back and forth element to the combat, which people familiar with the game already know about. It solves a problem that I think a lot of boss fights have when they want to be long, because the boss fights in this game are pretty long. They can last up to like 20 minutes, half an hour, I think. I'm pretty bad at the game, so maybe it shouldn't be that long. But the problem with a lot of boss fights that try to be very long is that developers are afraid that, of course, there's a chance of losing a lot of progress if the player dies, which is fair enough. So usually they resort to either putting checkpoints in the boss fight, or letting the player use health items, or having the boss give health back to you. But the way it works in Fury is really cool. The boss kind of works in sort of stages. This isn't even my final form kind of blocks. And every time you take down a stage of a boss fight, you get your health back. You've got 3 health bars. So let's say you're down to your 2nd health bar, and then you beat a stage of the boss, you'll get a health bar back, and you'll be back up to 3. Or maybe you'll be down to 1 health bar, you beat another stage, and you get another health bar back, you're at 2 health bars. What this means is, this works on a lot of levels, but one of the main reasons it's cool is that if the boss kicks you down a level, then they get a health bar back, and that's really cool. It means that you've got a lot to gain by winning, to sort of keep your health up, to keep going through these long boss fights, but you've also got a lot to lose. If you fuck up, then the boss is going to reap the rewards as well. It's also really cool because what it means is that when you beat a boss's phase and they go into their next phase, and obviously they're pulling out loads of crazy new attacks that you haven't seen before, you'll always have at minimum 2 health bars left, which means you have time to get used to their new phase, maybe lose a health bar, but then keep fighting on once you've lost it. So really smart boss design there. Very hard, very challenging. I'm still on the 2nd boss, but it seems like a challenge I'm going to want to rise to because it's very satisfying. Again, I'm not too crazy about the style. Music's really cool. I don't think I'm ever going to super take to top-down action as much as I do to games where the camera's controllable by you and it's kind of further down, closer to the ground. I just like controlling the camera in interesting ways and making my own little scenes. It's just what I'm used to, though, more than anything. I can't really think of a way to describe it right now, But there's just something about it that I prefer, even though it's funny because it actually gives you less visibility than Fury does. So on a purely gameplay level, this should mean more. I think games that are top-down, the gameplay has to be a little less diverse. You know, there can't be as much platforming, environmental traversal in interesting ways, or environmental discovery, the same way it is when you're on the ground, when the camera's close to the ground, and you're controlling it, and so forth and so on. But Fury is purely a game about just boss fights, so it makes sense they would go with this style. In between levels, there's like these really long walking segments, and it's really weird. It's a really weird juxtaposition. Like, it has like the most boring, like, walking bits ever, and then it has like the most gameplay focused, intense combat ever. So weird that they went with that style. Obviously, I haven't played much of the game. I'm not too familiar with where the story goes, but usually when it comes to a story, I'm more interested in the actions of characters within the story, rather than walking around hearing lore and background to characters who I'm not going to be that involved with, or aren't going to really interact with me outside of just fighting me. So I don't know if I'll take to the story, but definitely a game I'm going to try and keep playing. And I'll get back to you on whether or not I beat it or not. What else have I been playing? Well, I didn't even know this was a thing, but apparently Burnout Paradise got a remastered edition. It's on PC, so I don't really know what they did with this remaster to change Burnout Paradise. I might be misremembering how good Burnout Paradise looked, but it seems like kind of the same thing to me. I don't know. If you're not familiar with Burnout Paradise, it's a pretty fun, chill game. The Burnout series was this racing game series, and from the last main entry, they made this weird sort of open world game where you drive around a city and then you park somewhere and you do an event within the open world. So it might be drive to this destination, and it's weird, right? Because it's something you'd expect people to do today. It's like, oh, let's bring Burnout back, but it's going to be open world this time. It's like, But surprisingly, it's pretty fun. I'll be real, I haven't really played the other Burnouts very much, so I may be totally talking out my ass here, and they may be way better, but it's a lot of fun. You know, you get used to the sort of the world, the open world, and you know, you're using your knowledge as shortcuts to go throughout the city to do the events as well as you can, and the city's designed in a really cool way, with loads of satisfying little paths to find. So far, the only thing I can tell that they definitely changed is they added the words remastered to the Burnout Paradise billboards that you find throughout the city. It's a bit of a weird game, to be honest, because it's like, nobody's in the cars are empty. It's like this weird sort of plastic world where just cars drive themselves around and crash into each other. But yo, it's such a fun game to just chill out to and relax, just hold down the accelerate button, go all over the city, do races and stuff. No idea why they remastered it. The earlier Burnout games could do with maybe like a port to new systems rather than the one that's pretty easy to get. Maybe they just wanted to put it on PS4 and Xbox One. I played it on PC, so maybe that's why I'm so confused. But anyway. Finally, when it comes to PC ports, yes, the impossible happened. Yakuza 0 has released on PC, and from what I've played, I heard some people have had some problems, but my experience with the port has been pretty excellent so far. I don't have a 4K screen, so I can't take advantage of the higher resolutions. But I do have a 144 Hz monitor, so crank this baby up to 144 frames per second, and it is amazing. It's great. Yakuza 0 was already fun on PS4 for how fluid it was, and now it's even more fluid. This is also my first time playing through the game in English. I originally imported the game when it came out in Japan. I think it took like 2 years, maybe a year and a half to come out outside of Japan. So I'm not used to playing it in English. And that's fun in and of itself to play through the game and understand the little details and what people are talking about a little better. Just one of my favorite games, I'll be real with you. Just one of my favorite games. There's such a charm to everything in this game. There's a charm to the combat. There's a charm to the world. There's a charm to the story. Everything feels like condensed and detailed and polished, and just a heck of a good time to interact with on every level. It probably has the best combat the series ever had. It's obviously not the deepest combat system, but it still leagues above a lot of what other action games try and do. It's satisfying and enjoyable to unlock new moves and integrate them into your style, into your play style. The story, of course, just a great, like, heartwarming tale. It's a prequel game, so in Yakuza 0, you get to see loads of characters who haven't been in the series in ages in their prime, and it's kind of the end, in a weird way, it's kind of an end to their character arc, because, you know, you've seen a lot of older characters in the series, you know, they're kind of old, they're past their prime in the previous games, and here you get to see them kicking ass, in the prime of their life, and it's kind of a payoff to all those years of seeing those characters, finally getting to see them do something really cool and interact with them properly and fight them and stuff. And there's just so many little payoff moments for fans of the series, seeing certain characters who haven't interacted before and seeing them interact in this prequel. But at the same time, it's also a prequel that's very respectful of the canon. It doesn't try and pretend the characters who didn't seem to know each other that well in Yakuza 1, 2, and 3, it doesn't try and pretend that, oh yeah, they actually did know each other and we want them to interact in this older game for fan service. There's fan service in the game, but it all feels earned. None of it feels like it's jumping the gun or ruining established canon or changing something that like alters what made the previous games great. In fact, a lot of what it adds, I think, adds to the stories of those games, and, you know, I'd recommend it, and I definitely recommend it to fans of Yakuza, you know. Apparently, Kiwami is coming to PC. I'm not a big fan of that game compared to the original title, so I probably won't be getting that one. I kind of wish they'd port the original PS2 games to the PC, which I don't think they're going to do, unfortunately. But they're porting 3, 4, and 5 to PS4, I believe, so hopefully those will come to PC, and that would be good to have as well. So yeah, just sort of a bit of a rambly insider today. I'm so sorry that I'm not more animated. I'm completely frazzled. So I just woke up today and not in a good way. So maybe it's a good idea for me to go sit down, lie down, and play some games, so I've got some more stuff to talk about next time. As usual, big thanks to everyone who backs, who donates on Patreon. I wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. This is basically how I make my living now, so it's all thanks to you that we get to have this Gaming Brick content, this TGB content. Not in a million years would you have gotten 4 videos in 1 month without this being the way I make my money, so as usual, big heartfelt thanks, and see you all soon.